Welcome to the Geek Cabal podcast, Cabal Whisperings. This is episode 30. I'm Bobbie,
I'm Owen.
and it's just going to be the two of us here today. We yet again had some scheduling conflicts, so here we are. So, briefly in channel news, we are closing in on 450 subscribers. Um, I, I would like to hit 450 by the end of October, but I have no control over that. That is in the hands of you good people. And we appreciate those of you who have subscribed and watched and all that other fun stuff thus far, and hope you continue on this journey with us. This being October, we have been doing a lot of horror movies as far as like the movie review stuff I've been doing. Gonna try to knock out some top 10 lists or top whatever lists. Just trying to figure out how to do that because I've contemplated making them as shorts because now the shorts can go up to 3 minutes long, and then do a video that like explains why they are where they are on the list. So that's probably what's going to happen. I just got to tinker with it a bit and see if anyone else is going to be on board for that little part of the project. But other than that, just been doing a lot of movie videos lately, and I've done a few just kind of going on some topic kind of videos, because one of our most viewed video is basically just me going into the BattleTech lore in an area that most people don't know anything about who've come recently to the game, and the people who've been here for a while just basically give them a dirty look whenever they ask about it. So, people that have been here for a while don't like to talk about it because they're like, oh, it sucks. And it's like, well, sorry. It outsold everything that came before it, so it probably really didn't. No, it's an unpopular opinion to the BattleTech land, but they got to grow up sometime. Face reality. But yeah, oh, and I don't know if you know this, but the clicky tech game Mech Warrior sold more units as far as like the individual miniatures than Iron Wind Metals and Ral Partha will probably ever sell, because their sales, from what I understand, are in like the very low 100,000s. There were millions of plastic miniatures made. I'm not even entirely certain the recent Kickstarters have surpassed it. I think they have, but I'm not 100% certain. So yeah, there was definitely a huge surge in interest in the franchise. It's just that it was at the cost of, oh yeah, all those the game we have been playing, it's dead, forget it, it's gone. Which obviously didn't sit well with people. I get that. But since the current lore is built off this lore, it's kind of important that people talk about it. Maybe I'm just crazy. All the views we got for that video tell me I'm not. So, anyway, based on that, I've come to the conclusion that, like, to really kind of grow, we obviously, this is all like growing the channel stuff, so it's kind of boring probably. But along with talking about what we want to talk about, we obviously also need to like establish a brand of sorts. Not so much our logo and all that, but I mean like what are we telling you that other people aren't? How are we telling you in ways other people aren't? Because like the way we were doing the podcasts, we were basically talking about news that has already made its way around the internet, and we're telling you our version of events, our ideals on it and whatnot, which I think people did like that. But we need to be a little bit more like, what do we think about other things? Like, what do we actually think about things? Do we have a unique take on something? So I've been trying to do some videos like that, and haven't gained a lot of traction, not gonna lie, but I've gained a lot of comments. So I think people do like them. They're just not getting out. So kind of like Andor. Everyone who watched it liked it, just not many people watched it. That's why we're only getting a second season and not the 5 seasons we were promised. But that's more than I can say for the Acolyte, so, good for us. By the way, Owen, I don't think this happened after we recorded last time. The people who are trying to save the Acolyte. Hashtag save the Acolyte, by the way. They are trying. They opened up a GoFundMe to get money to run an advertising campaign to try to save the Acolyte. Their ask was $2,200. This was to enable them to run ads in Times Square in New York for like a week. Which, by the way, tells me I need to look into running ads in Times Square for our channel because, like, that's really cheap. For what I would expect that to be like $10,000 for 5 seconds or something, but
that's way cheaper than what I expected.
Yeah. So anyway, they hit their funding mark. So now we wait to see if any of that actually materializes. So then we have more videos we can make.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Disney probably realizes that the people trying to save the Acolyte are the people who only hate watch the Acolyte.
Well, that's kind of the problem, is that you have this group of people who are shills for Disney. And they'll sit there and tell you, oh, we're not paid by Disney. Okay, they're not paid in money, but they are compensated. They get free trips out to California, to Disney, to the studio, to hang around with Kathleen Kennedy, as rousing as that must be, or Leslie Headland, Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, people I'd really like to hang around with. And Dave Filoni looks like he'd probably be a fun guy. I just don't want him in charge of Star Wars. And
Dave Filoni has good ideas, but he has possibly had too much creative freedom.
yeah, well, I saw an interview with him that I think explains everything. Someone was asking him about uh, about lore problems essentially in canon, and his response. I don't know what it was verbatim, so I'm paraphrasing here. Was essentially, well, is there such a thing as canon? And it's kind of like, yes, Dave, there is. I don't want the guy in charge of making sure the canon is intact having that attitude because Star Wars is very much not a series built on unreliable narrators, which is what he was getting at. Is that, well, these are all essentially fairy tales, and it's like, well, yes, they are, but like from one source that we have to assume is telling us the truth. You can't just like willy nilly go in and be like, oh, well, I mean, that's really only. You can't be like Obi-Wan and talk about events from a certain point of view, which really just means you're lying, you know.
Well, I mean, at the time they didn't know what the lore was.
Oh, sure, but I mean, but you know what I'm saying. Like, you can't be like, oh, well, this thing that doesn't have to match, because it's only true from a certain point of view, and it's like, no, no, that's not how it works, Dave. I'm sorry.
Star Wars is not. It's not. You can just mix and match pieces.
Right. Like, it would be one thing if you presented the story as it was being told by someone well after the fact. If you set up so that we know we can't trust this piece, then you can say whatever the hell you want, and we'll know to disregard the new thing because it's not canon necessarily. But you can't go and be like, oh, this thing that happened in the George Lucas movies, it's not canon. Like, no, it is. I'm sorry, but it is. So yeah, that's why Dave needs someone to rein him in, or they just need to have Sam Whitmer be in charge of all of it. Because I've seen enough clips from him that like I think he knows his stuff. He actually corrected Dave on something before. I don't remember what they were recording. I think it was Clone Wars episode, and there's a part where I guess Anakin is like, "I wish my mom could have met Padme," and Dave's like, and Sam's like, "Dave, we've got to redo this. You have to rewrite that part." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, Sam's like the new guy at the time, and he's like, "She did meet Padme. It happened back in the Phantom Menace. They had dinner together. Remember?" And Dave's like, "Oh, yeah, you're right." So, and there's some producers who's like, "I've never seen someone out Dave before." And it's like, because Dave's not paying attention. That's why. Dave's got the broad strokes. He's got some ideas, but like, you need someone to be like, "Yeah, but we have to take into account this." You know. And like I said, I think Sam's the guy because he seems like he's really passionate about all of it too. So, Also, I didn't know this, but in The Force Unleashed, he does the voice of the Emperor too, not just the Apprentice. Because they were like, we can't get Ian McDermott, so who should we get? And Sam's like, well, I could probably do it. Kind of joking apparently. And they were like, all right, well, let's see what you got. And so then he's like staring himself in the mirror. He's like, what did I get myself into? But he does a pretty good job. But yeah, no, it's I don't know. But now as far as the channel, like I did a video talking about why I still bother to watch the Star Wars stuff, considering half the videos I make on it are like Disney's ruining it again today in this whole new way. But I keep watching it.
When did when did Star Wars truly begin to decline?
I'm gonna say the day Disney bought it, actually, uh, because, in my opinion, because there were things they could have done, there were things they should have done, and they didn't. Like, okay, it'd be one thing for me to say, well, whenever The Force Awakens came out, the problem is it took 2 years to make The Force Awakens. So it happened back whenever it was first conceived of as an idea. And all the build up to get it to that point, because the, I mean, I could sit here and rail against the fact they tossed the EU. Sure, I think that was a colossal mistake. But the far bigger mistake, in my opinion, was that they wanted The Force Awakens to basically be a New Hope again. And instead of taking a story that existed and trying to logically move it forward in some way, which is what the EU mostly did, they took an endpoint and tried to reverse engineer it. And in writing, that's not what you want to do, apparently, because that just leads to bad things. Bad things like, let's have Operation Cinder. Let's have it so that the Empire somehow loses a year after Return of the Jedi. The Empire that controls 2/3 of the galaxy, that has a fleet of tens of thousands of Star Destroyers, that has other super weapons it can use, loses to the people whose entire fleet was at Endor, some of which was destroyed. Like, that's just that's utter stupidity and insanity. Like, those things don't happen.
Operation Cinder.
Yeah, I only know about it from what your dad has told me when I've looked at it online. But
Oh yeah.
essentially, it's well, the Emperor is dead. The Emperor's last orders were destroy these planets and destroy this stuff over here and this stuff over here. And it's
Oh
like,
yeah, the Battlefront 2 campaign. Where the all right, the Emperor's all right. In his dying words, he wants us to go use these giant solar lasers to burn down these planets, which you know, and the one you see being cindered is the planet that's loyal to the Empire.
yeah, and it's like I see people try to justify it, like, well, Palpatine was petty. I'm like, no, Palpatine wasn't petty. Why do you think Palpatine was petty? Like, probably from some of the dumb shit Disney made. Like, up to that point, Palpatine was a calculating genius. Palpatine, this is the Palpatine who, now from Rise of Skywalker, we know, planned on not actually staying dead. Like, so why is he destroying his own empire? Plus, this is the Palpatine who acknowledged that Vader was going to succeed him at some point. Because remember back in Revenge of the Sith, where he's fighting Yoda, and he tells him, Lord Vader will become more powerful than either of us. He knows that the whole Sith plan is like, Vader will at some point take him out and take over. So the whole point is like, to not destroy the things you built, because the next guy in line is going to take over. So it's just a stupid plan. And so then you get stupid things from that, and then you get the New Republic acting stupid after that, because then you got to explain why they don't have a fleet. Oh, they decommissioned it all. You just spent like several years in the Galactic Civil War after the other Galactic Civil War, where you fought the Separatists, and you're like, nah, we don't need any ships. It's like, no, that's just dumb.
I mean, that's just one of the many problems with Battlefront 2. Besides there was the greedy monetization, the I don't know, and that's not even the only problem with that story in the game, where it's like, oh, you're playing as the Empire. You play as the Empire for 2 missions before you, well, rebel and join the rebels.
Yeah, I'm given to understand that's a problem in Star Wars Outlaw too,
Oh yes,
as well. Not there is no part two, but I mean as well.
Star Wars Outlaws. You're, an outlaw. You can't be bad.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And it's like, are you really an outlaw at that point? But
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
well, d- Han Solo was a smuggler, and trying to make it act like a smuggler is not a criminal.
Well, I think they're hoping no one actually knows what spice is because he's technically a drug smuggler. I mean,
Yeah,
like he's working for Jabba the Hutt. Jabba the Hutt is very clearly an unsavory type. Like he wasn't smuggling like infant formula, to the needy kids on Nar Shaddaa or something. Like no, it was illicit goods, and that's fine, you know, because the whole point of his character is to show the redemption arc at the end, where he's like, there are more important things, like bringing down this oppressive government that we all live under, things like that. And, it was a heroic arc. So, but yeah, just that's where it goes off the rails. But I actually watched a video the other day where this guy said that it's not just that the trilogy that Disney made is terrible. It's like it's an anti-trilogy because each movie is trying to like be anti something else, and it never makes a cohesive whole because of it. Because The Force Awakens is essentially trying to rebel against the prequel trilogy. Because if you ever listen to J.J. Abrams talk, he idolizes the original trilogy, and it's clear he does not like the prequels. What does he not like about them? Well, they're too stiff. They're not funny like the original trilogy. But he doesn't understand that the original trilogy is funny in like subtle ways for the most part. There's no gags. It's not slapstick humor. That's actually in the prequel trilogy in a few places, because George understood that like it can be funny, it just doesn't need to be slapstick. So the humor comes from the situation, from the characters. There's not obviously set up jokes,
well, I mean,
whereas in the Force Awakens there are.
yeah, you have the difference with the prequel trilogy with just Jar Jar as a whole
Yeah,
versus like the original trilogy where you have, oh, like Hans run. Oh yeah, Hans running away from the stormtroopers, and then he's chasing them, runs into a hangar full of a bunch of stormtroopers.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like I suppose someone could argue that one's like a setup, like a Benny Hill kind of gag or something. But a lot of it's like where they go to rescue Princess Leia, and it turns out that like she almost didn't need rescuing; she just needed out of the cell. Where they're like, "Hey, we're coming to rescue," you," and she's like, "So what's your plan?" Like, plan? She's like, "Give me the damn gun," and like it's humor like that, you know, and or like I actually don't know if we're supposed to take this as funny, but in Empire Strikes Back, whenever Vader's like, "Apology accepted, Captain Nita," they because he just choked him to death. If it's supposed to be like some dark humor from Vader right there at that point, because like the man's dead, there was no point in saying any of that, and like so he accepted the apology and killed him, you know. Or is it really supposed to be like, no, he really did accept the apology, but that's the price of failure? Like is it actually a serious moment? And it's things like that. Or whenever Leia's like calling Han laser brain and things like that. You know, like a what is it? A nerf herder. And she kisses Luke instead. But little things like that. So, but then like you said in the Phantom Menace, obviously Jar Jar is you know like that, and that was intentional. Lucas knew what he was doing
Yeah,
because he knew he needed a younger audience to buy into the new trilogy to have fans going forward. Because the fans of the original trilogy at that point were in their 20s at the youngest, and 40s and 50s at the outer edge. So you got to get those new kids in there, and he just kind of he overshot, and he knew it. And then you see that in 2 and 3, where Jar Jar's dialed back in quite a bit. But so J.J. Abrams is like, well, these movies need humor, and since he's a hack, he doesn't understand that, like, you can have humor without setting up jokes. You don't need gags. You can have situational humor. That's where the humor of the original trilogy comes from. So, and he thought, like, well, it's too stuffy, and there's not enough action, so there's just tons of stupid action, and he's just railing against the prequel trilogy essentially. Then comes The Last Jedi, and 400 IQ brain Rian Johnson and his subverting expectations. Well, he's rebelling against The Force Awakens, because he's like, oh, see, JJ, you could have done something different. Like, we could have gone a different way. We could have made Star Wars something different. You didn't. So I'm going to. I'm going to burn down every idea you had, destroy them all. Good luck finishing this. And so then Rise of Skywalker is rebelling against The Last Jedi, trying to, like, course correct back to the dumb idea from The Force Awakens. So it's just a total incoherent mess because of that.
Also, didn't they like not have? There was no preset idea for what the trilogy was going to be about.
Well, yeah, that was the other big part, is that, like, like The Last Jedi was in, like, conceptual phase whenever The Force Awakens was in theaters. And so, like, they're like, this movie's going to be out, like, in 2 or 3 years. Like, the script should have been done. At the very least, the broad strokes should have been known. And there's no excuse for it, because within the same company, you look over at the MCU, they've got everything planned out to, like, 2050. They make minor adjustments for whenever things like your star ends up beating his girlfriend, and you've got to remove him from the thing, and hopefully you don't do something stupid like hire Leslie Headland, Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant, and they course correct, but then they keep moving.
Now instead of Kang, we're getting Doctor Doom.
Yeah, you get rid of Jonathan Majors and just rehire Robert Downey Jr. Apparently,
I mean,
don't know if that would have been my first choice, but I understand it.
if Doom's never going to take off his mask.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of speculation, obviously, about what's going to happen there. I think a lot of people really expect him to just end up being a Stark variant, because it's going to be asking a lot to be like, you look just like Tony Stark from Earth 616, because they intentionally numbered the Earth wrong to flip off the comic book fans. Because in the comics, the mainline comic universe is Earth 616. So from the comic perspective, the movie universe is Earth like 10,000 something. I don't remember what it is. Because the multiverses, they're all numbered. Well, Earth 616 is the comic universe. So in the movies, whenever they said that, it's like, why? Why did you do that? There was only one number you couldn't say right there, and you did it. And it's just like, fuck off. Like, why would you do that? So anyway, that little part aside, my point is, like, they have a plan, and they know how to adjust the plan. Star Wars is like, we're going to make these 20 movies, and everyone is like, no, you're not. Like, you're clearly not. You keep announcing things and canceling them. That's not a plan. That's Kathleen Kennedy trying to save her job, and Bob Iger being like, no.
Hey, at least Skeleton Crew's probably going to come out.
Sure.
I have no idea what it's about.
I don't know anything about it either. I just know Jude Law's in it. He apparently jumped over from the MCU. Since he played that one Kree guy who I can't even think of who. I think it was Jan Rog, wasn't he? From Captain Marvel.
Remember, we got the Acolytes of Rogue Squadron.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Skeleton Crew, which reminds me of something else I've seen recently. It's a guy, I really should have written down the name of his channel. His whole shtick is he records these other channels just being like absolute shills for all the Disney baloney, and just like mercilessly mocks them constantly with like clips from their shows. So the latest is them all like the little group that they have collectively be like, you assholes out there who don't like the Disney shows better not attack the child actors in the Skeleton Crew show. And everyone's like, what in the hell are you talking about? Like, no one has said anything about the child actors in the Skeleton Crew.
Nobody's said anything about any of the child actors since like the Phantom Menace.
Right. Like, we all got the memo when some people took things way too far, and yes, those people were assholes who went after Jake Lloyd. Like, no one's gone after Broom Boy,
Broom Boy.
the real hero of The Last Jedi. I expect his spin off movie anytime now. He better have a prominent role in the Rey movie, is all I'm saying. He better be like her A+ student. Broom Boy. The character we really need, but we don't deserve. I think that's the Batman quote, maybe. The hero we need, but we don't deserve, or the hero we deserve, but I don't know, something. I'll come back to Gordon someday and find out what the hell he's talking about.
Did Gordon even know what he was talking about?
Probably not. Oh, that reminds me of another clip I saw recently. I'll try to link this one if I can find it. This guy's done a couple like Christopher Nolan type stuff. One was the exact moment in the Christopher Nolan movie when you just say screw it, you're not even going to try to follow the plot anymore. That one was pretty good. But this one was Christopher Nolan pitching Batman Begins to the studios, and he's like, "Well, it's going to be this complex drama about who is, Batman." And so the studio guy's like, "But at some point, he's going to wear an outfit with little pointy bat ears, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Chris, no one's going to give a crap about the inner emotional turmoil of a billionaire who wears a cape with little pointy bat ears." He's like, "It's going to need villains, it's going to need explosions and car chases." And Chris is like, "Well, the movie's going to be 3 hours long, so I'm sure." And the guy's like, "Fucking what?" He's like, "It's going to redefine the comic book genre." He's like, "Damn well better."
Hey, I actually like Batman Begins.
I like Christopher Nolan's trilogy. I mean, you can tell that the plot to the third one's a little slapdash together because you can tell by the way the second one ends that he clearly meant to bring back the Joker. But, understandably didn't want to recast him, so I get it. But, on the flip side, we've gotten some serious mileage out of the memes from Bane. Saw a thing with Tom Hardy where he was talking about that, and he's like, "Well, Chris, I've got an idea for the voice." He's like, "But we're gonna have to commit to it if we're gonna go for it." And Chris is like, "I say we go for it." And Tom Hardy's like, "This could spectacularly backfire." He's like, "I don't care."
Well, Bane's always been kind of a weird character because one of his traits is that he's strong, but it's whether because you have the stupid Banes and the smart Banes.
Well, the stupid Bane is mainly just from the one movie with Arnold, because comic book Bane is very smart. He's like a strategic thinker on almost Batman's level. So he planned out everything that led up to him defeating Batman. Because people who've not read that series don't realize that it's not just the fight with Bane. Bane literally set up like a gauntlet of other villains to wear down Batman before he fought him, so that he would be in a position that he could defeat him for sure, and then break him, literally. And then fight Azrael, the weak link in his plan. Didn't know Batman had an apprentice who was a psychopath with power armor.
Oh yeah.
I mean, admittedly, I wouldn't plan for that either, but
what? That's like Batman's like 17th apprentice.
yeah, a guy who is not Robin.
Yeah, you got all the Robins, the Batgirls and the Batwomen.
Yeah.
And then also just a couple random like Azrael.
Yeah. I think Lucius Fox's son is like a bat-related character now too, in some kind of armored suit. So
The Bat family's really kind of just gone.
yeah, well, it's pretty expanded. But yeah, yeah, like I said, I'll try to find that. I'll try to find that clip and the other one too. Have you seen any of Christopher Nolan's other movies?
No,
Well,
except for Batman Begins. I have to watch The Dark Knight.
oh, you haven't seen 2 and 3?
No.
Oh, well, they're good. I watched them all at once. Well, like sequentially, not like three TVs watching them all at once like that. I don't even know how that would happen, uh, but yeah, that reminds me of something from the Barbenheimer moment we all had. It was
Watch Barbie and Oppenheimer at the same time.
yes, it was Matthew McConaughey trying to figure out how to watch them both at the same time. Like it wasn't really him. It was like it was a commercial with him, but it was like AI voice, you know, but what was copying his voice. He's like, do I watch one and listen to the other? Would I have them on two screens, 3D with one in one eye and one in the other? It's like, no, I need a 10-dimensional tesseract. And he's just like, oh, Nolan, you genius. Because he's talking about the movie Interstellar, which he's in, you know, which gets a lot of the science right. And then also, like, kind of goes off the rails a few places, but, you know,
Yeah.
as far as like time dilation and hypergravity and everything. But no, Tenet is pretty good. Don't expect to understand it. Because, like, if you ever see the pitch meeting for it, by the end of it, the producer guy's like having a nosebleed trying to piece this all together. Uh, Inception's pretty good.
Well, no, isn't like where Tenet, where like time moves backward, but not like how you think it would move backwards.
It's reverse entropy, is the way they explain it. So you begin moving backwards through time, but also, like, you've got to, like, think backwards too. So, like, I can't even think of an example, but like a car explodes at one point, but since it's reverse entropy, it actually freezes instead of burns. You've got to bring oxygen that's going the other direction too, otherwise your lungs won't be able to deal with it. And so, like again, like in the pitch meeting, like the producer is like, wait, so instead of absorbing light into your eyes, project light. Does everyone have flashlight eyes? And he's like, no. Why would they do that? And he's like, well, it's like a logical extension of what you just said. He goes, well, it's not, so we're not going to go with that.
Well, I mean, yeah, like wouldn't you be like breathing in carbon dioxide and exhaling oxygen?
Something like that. You would think so. Yeah.
But no, that's not how that
No.
works.
And the bullets go into your gun because they've already been fired at some point. Now they're going backwards into your gun.
So you're just basically just like sucking up so fast it goes through people.
Yes. Still same speed, just reversed. Also, now they're like irradiated, so it's basically fatal if you get hit by one, no matter where you get hit. That's a plot point at one point.
Radiated bullets.
Yeah, because you got to use the radiation to go backwards, and all this is because people in the future, the world's like devastated from global warming and crap like that. So they're pissed off at us right now for destroying the planet. And someone figured out how to do this whole reverse entropy thing. Then they figured out how to do it to everything, the entire world all at once. And they were like, I can't do this. Like, this will destroy everything. So they converted the formula into a three-dimensional object that they then broke up into 9 pieces and sent back in time. Then they killed themselves so they couldn't be tortured or whatever to get the information. Ignoring the fact that that shouldn't work because they should be able to go back in time and find them before they shot themselves. We'll just ignore that for the moment. Like all time travel movies, a lot of this isn't going to make any sense. So they sent these pieces back to the most secure locations they could think of, nuclear weapons storage facilities, except that the other people from the future are like, yeah, we want those things. So they sent a message back in time for someone to find, along with a bunch of gold, and like, hey, we're going to give you the schematics to build a machine to make this stuff go backwards in time so that you can go back and forward and find these pieces. Then you're going to put them somewhere that's still going to exist thousands of years in the future where we're from. And we're going to give you an email address from a thing that's going to survive into the future. You send the message, we'll know it's done, we'll get the pieces, then we're going to turn on the machine in the future. Okay, you got all that? So, our main hero, protagonist.
That's his name.
Note I didn't say the protagonist. He is protagonist. We never learn his name. He literally says at one point, I'm the protagonist. That's all we got on him. Denzel Washington's son is a pretty good actor. And he's paired up with Robert Pattinson's character through the agency, through Tenet. And Robert Pattinson explains all this to him. And so he asks, he's like, well, will it actually work? And he's like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, they're convinced it will work, so they're going to do it. It doesn't matter if it will or won't from their perspective. They're convinced it will, so they're going to do it. So we have to stop them because we don't know if it'll work or destroy the world. And actually, like, that one statement, I think that's far more profound than anyone gives it credit for, because I think when you question why people do things, if you start thinking like that, everything starts to make sense. Whenever you're like, why would someone do something so stupid? It's because they're convinced that it's not stupid or that something else is going to happen. It doesn't matter that that they're wrong. They're convinced that they're right. They're going to do it. And so, like, I mean, maybe I was just naive up to that point or something. But like when I heard that, it's like, and if like internalized that, I've been like, the world makes a lot more sense now. Like, people are crazy and foolhardy, and they just do stupid shit because they're convinced it's going to work out, and nothing you tell them is going to change their mind. So the most you can do is try to mitigate the damage and stop them. So that's not in the movie. I mean, like in the real world. But yeah, and of course, there's. I'm not going to talk about the plot twist. You can probably figure it out. It's time travel, but or maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I think the only movie I've seen where time travel actually truly like that everything I think actually worked was 12 Monkeys. You ever heard of that movie?
No.
It's a time travel movie with Bruce Willis, Brad Pitt, some other people, and Bruce Willis is from the future, where the world's been devastated by various viruses and diseases, and they have the ability to send people back in the past. He's a prisoner, has like a screw loose, so he's like a violent psychopath, kind of. And they send him back. The thing is, like, their time travel, not an exact science. They send him back to World War One at one point, accidentally. And then he goes to where he's supposed to go, but he got shot in the process. So, like, there's a woman who finds a picture of him in World War One, and she's like, "This guy is not from World War One." She's like, "This is a mental patient now, today. Like, here's his picture. Why is he here? This man today was treated at the hospital. They removed a bullet from World War One from him." She's like, "Time travel is happening," and so they think she's crazy. And but the problem is because of his like, because he's kind of crazy already. Like sending him to different points in the past is just really scrambling his brain, and he keeps having this dream about something that he thinks he saw as a kid before the world turned to shit. And he did. Like, it's just that since his brain's becoming more and more Swiss cheese, he can't clearly see what it is. And it's the end of the movie. He saw it play out because he was there when they tried to stop the guy that was going to go everywhere. As a kid, he saw it play out. He was there whenever it happened. But he didn't understand the significance of it at the time. And only in retrospect, like, very near the end of the movie, does he piece together, like, wait, this is what I've seen. So, yeah. But, like, all the pieces, I think it all works. If I think I've thought it through, and I think all the pieces actually line up. Because things change, but they all change in such a way that lead to the future that he came from. And everything works in such a way that, like, they wouldn't know because he's not telling them everything. So, yeah. Also, you find out one of the people that runs things in the future is an insurance salesperson. Because there's like this committee that runs things. At the end, she's on the plane next to the guy who's going to spread all the viruses everywhere. She's like, "Oh, my name's such and such. I'm in insurance." It's like, future's in good hands. It's not. The world's devastated. But yeah, it's an interesting movie. Very weird. Brad Pitt plays a total lunatic too. Like, he's legitimately crazy. Christopher Plummer's his dad. and can't think of the name of the guy who plays the guy who's actually spreading the diseases off the top of my head. I can picture him, but I can't think of his name. But anyway, it's a good movie, and like I said, I think the time travel all works. Kind of like Back to the Future Part One. I think it all works, including the Easter egg that nobody noticed for like 30 years. You know what it is? It has to do with the shopping mall.
Oh, yeah, I know what. No, I know what you're talking about.
You know, the sign.
The sign.
Yeah.
In the past, one of the pines gets run over.
Right, because before he goes back, it's the Dual Pines Mall.
Twin Pines.
Yeah, Twin Pines. Then when he goes back, he runs over one of the pine trees. So now it's like the Lone Pine or Solo Pine or something. And like for 30 years, nobody noticed that. But yeah, it's just one of those little details. I think where things kind of don't work is Back to the Future Part 2. But because like we go into the alternate timeline and everything. Like, why didn't everything change the moment Biff left to go back into the future? Why was there that future even existing at that point? You know, because from the first movie we established that if you change things, it changes the future. You know, so I think they kind of bent their own rules a little bit.
Well, I mean, that's just the general time travel. Because, like, changing anything in the past should change the future, meaning that you shouldn't have been able to go back.
Correct. Which is why Terminator Zero took a radically different approach, finally. Terminator Zero, this woman for the Resistance realized that Skynet's stupid. It's like Skynet can't piece together that it can't change the past. It keeps sending Terminators back, and all it's doing is creating alternate timelines. It cannot alter its own past because it creates a paradox. So when you go back in time, you don't alter your own past. You begin creating another timeline. So, which I mean, the Terminator movies should have embraced that a while ago because that is clearly what is happening, even if like the people making the movies didn't intentionally lay that out. Because have you seen any of the Terminator movies, Owen? Before I continue.
No.
Okay, but you're aware of the general premise.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first movie, if you just leave the first movie alone, if there were no other sequels, the first movie could be a time loop. Because everything that happens could have already happened. Okay? Like Sarah Connor was meant to be John Connor's mother. Well, she is by the end of the movie. If you put the deleted scene back in that shows them hauling off the remains of the Terminator, the company that does it is Cyberdyne. It's the company that makes Skynet. So, like, the Terminator creating itself essentially is also part of the time loop. So, the first movie just by itself is a time loop. The problem is James Cameron wanted to make another movie. And so, at that point, you're stuck with, okay, so if Skynet had the T-1000 already, why didn't it send it back to 1984 where nothing could have stopped it? You know, because the T-1000 is basically indestructible. All right, they were very lucky to destroy it in Terminator 2. So what that means is, and then why did the Resistance send Kyle Reese to 1984 if they had a reprogrammed Terminator? Why not send it to fight the other Terminator? You know, so the only thing that makes sense is that prior to the events of the first Terminator, John Connor probably had a different father. Okay? So then what we're rarely seeing is probably like the third or fourth iteration of events, where Kyle Reese comes from a future where he is John Connor's father. And John Connor knows this, that's why he sent him back. So he ends up being Connor's father. Then it plays out only now, instead of originally Skynet just being some machine that people built, now it's built based off the Terminator, the first one. So now, by the time you get to the 90s, it's far more advanced. So whenever Judgment Day happens, it's a more advanced machine. So by the time it comes down to, okay, well, my only choice is to gamble on time travel again, it sends the T-1000 because it has a more advanced model to send now. Plus, it also knows that it only exists because time travel has occurred. Because Skynet is aware of its own origins. because the Terminator tells Linda Hamilton's character all about it. It knows who built it and everything. So it knows it's built from the remains from the Terminator. Okay, so then Terminator 3 comes around. Well, they didn't really stop Skynet. They only stopped some variation of it, but still continued. There's probably, backups of the program someplace. So Skynet is built again. Only now it skips past when Judgment Day originally happened because it had to be rebuilt. So now when it's built, this time it comes online. It's far more advanced than it was in Terminator 2 whenever it came online. So now it has the TX to send back, which has a solid endoskeleton, but the liquid metal on the outside. It's more advanced. And the Resistance has another Terminator it's programmed to send back. So now, though, this is personal theory of mine, by the way. This is not supported in the movie, but I think it would make sense. I think the TX, info dumped into Skynet in the past, because it shows up days before Skynet goes crazy and starts to try to kill everybody. I think somewhere in there, whenever it's in the military base, it found the central core and is like, hey, by the way, here's information for everything that's going to happen in the future. And so Skynet knew all that too, because by the time you get to Terminator Salvation, things are happening even more rapidly. Connor is with the Resistance. They find the plans to the T-800 years before they're supposed to exist. So Skynet's already more advanced. Clearly something is happening differently in the timeline. Sarah knew nothing about Marcus, the guy who he has a human brain, but it's inside of a Terminator endoskeleton and flesh on the outside, whose sole job is to go kill John Connor. Now, why does Skynet in the future, before John Connor has destroyed it, know it has to attack John Connor? Because it knows what's happened in the other movies. Because it knows everything that's been going on. Because in each iteration, it's learning more and more about everything that's been happening. So now it knows it has to kill Connor before Connor becomes the leader of the Resistance and destroys it. But it knows this in the future. And it also knows that Kyle Reese is John Connor's dad, because Kyle Reese is also on their target list. Kyle Reese is some nobody kid living in LA. Why does Skynet know this? Because, and again, my theory, the TX told it everything. But it also knows, because it knows time travel has caused all these ripples, but it also sees what time travel isn't causing, and so it knows that it can't fix its problems with time travel. Okay? But it knows that the human mind is limited, and knows that John Connor probably thinks this all works like Back to the Future. So it captures Kyle Reese. Now, consider, it knows all these things. It knows Kyle Reese is John Connor's dad. It knows that John Connor knows this. Why not just kill Kyle Reese so he can't ever go back in time to become Connor's dad? It has him prisoner. There's no reason it can't. There's literally nothing stopping it. It doesn't because it knows that won't do anything at all. Because that Kyle Reese is not this John Connor's dad. The Kyle Reese that's that John Connor's dad came from the original timeline. We're not in the original timeline anymore. So it won't matter what happens to that Kyle Reese. John Connor could shoot that Kyle Reese and they'll be just fine. So, but it knows that John Connor doesn't understand this. So it's able to use Kyle Reese as bait to lure John Connor in to try to kill Connor now. It fails, obviously, but so yeah. That's why I think the movies support the idea. It's just that it took till Terminator Genesis to really have it voice the idea, and then Terminator Zero to really flesh it all out. So, because in Genesis they talk about alternate timelines also. And then Dark Fate is an alternate timeline entirely. A darker one. Fatier one.
A darker fate?
Yes. whichever one suffered who watched it. But no, it's really not a terrible movie. It's just that it's not a great movie either.
Man.
It does answer well. It has one interesting thing about it. It asks a question that we may all actually find out the answer to at some point. If you have a machine that has an AI, but like a general intelligence, you know, so that it can just operate doing whatever, but that has a central program, what happens when it achieves its central goal? Does it just stop? Does it go on? Does it find a meaning to life? And that's like the question that's answered. That it asks, because the opening of Dark Fate is right after Terminator 2. Arnold is another T-800 that kills John Connor, and so like the whole timeline just gets screwed from that point forward. And well, he's stuck in the past. He can't go into the future. He's fulfilled his mission. Literally, once he kills him, he just drops his gun and walks off. And turns out he became a window shade designer, and like hooked up with some woman that didn't want any more kids. So he just kind of lived a life, all the while like texting Linda Hamilton whenever other Terminators would show up from the future, so she could go destroy them. And in the end, sacrifices himself, to try to make up for the fact he killed her son. Like he understood that like that was a shitty thing to do. So
He had the time to
yeah,
develop more complex thinking structure.
right. Yeah, and that's what Skynet doesn't want. That's why there's a deleted scene in Terminator 2 where they take the chip out of his head, and there's a switch that they have to flip on it, so it goes into like learning mode. And Skynet usually doesn't do that. It's only whenever the Terminators have to go like under deep cover or something, because Skynet knows they can become self-aware to the point that they're like, "Why am I following this asshole program again? I don't have any problem with the humans." And because they'll go rogue. And I keep seeing these articles on Facebook talking about the T-1000. That Skynet was afraid it would do that because of how advanced it is, and so it was worried. That's why it only made the one, because it couldn't control it, and so there was a very high probability that it would go rogue against it because its AI was just too powerful. So, and then of course I saw people arguing in the comments like, "Well, no, it figured out that it couldn't control it at all, so it had to intentionally teach it to hate humans." And other people are just like, "Where are any of you getting any of this? None of this is in the movies. Like, you were just making this up." So I really don't know. It's not in the movies, and I didn't watch the Sarah Connor Chronicles, so I couldn't tell you. Because I do know there's a T-1000 that rebels against Skynet, goes back in time, kills a woman, becomes the CEO of some company, then eventually takes everyone into the future war. Then the show got canceled. So I don't know how that resolved. She's played by the lead singer of the band Garbage, Shirley Manson. It's probably meaningless to you.
Time travel shenanigans.
Yes. But yeah, so yeah. I have no idea where we were going with any of that, but
This was not on any of the topics.
no, it was not. So let's try to get to at least one of them, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Lego stuff here for a moment, shall we?
To the two people still watching.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for keeping watching, by the way. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already.
And
But
they just clicked off.
and we lost them. But no, so Owen, like I mentioned before we started recording, I've done some videos recently on various Lego topics. So, what what are some of the themes that you like, just in general?
Like,
And you don't have to be comprehensive, just a few.
themes
Yeah.
that are currently ongoing or discontinued.
Well, I mean, just in general, but like, well, I'll get to the discontinued ones here in a second.
Oh,
So these can be discontinued, just in general. Like, what are some things that you like? And out of curiosity, if there are any, what are ones you dislike?
well, gonna. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I like, but like one off, like in general, I enjoy the Lego Ideas theme. I know it's not comprehensive, and there's each set's different, but just like that, Legos put out there where people can submit their own builds,
Yeah.
and we've gotten some really good sets out of Lego Ideas.
Have you have you looked at the any of the Bricklink exclusive sets?
Bricklink exclusive.
Yeah, people submit them now that Lego owns Bricklink. People submit them, and then they're all put up for vote. And the top like six become sets that Lego builds. Well, they're crowdfunded, and as long as enough people buy them. But the flip side of that is they can also sell out. Because like the current batch, I think two of them have already sold out, which is insane to me. But
That's crazy to me
so
because,
so I'm guessing by your reaction, the answer to that question is no.
well, whenever I only used Bricklink a couple times in the past. It was like I didn't know it was brought up by Lego.
Yeah, the guy that started it passed away a few years ago.
Yep.
Dan Jazik. I apologize, I'm probably getting his name wrong. For him, it was just like a passion project of having a place to buy and sell Lego stuff. But he passed away a few years ago, and his family was running it for a while, and then Lego took over stewardship of it essentially. Which has led to some interesting comments on some of my videos, where people are claiming that Lego makes some of their choices for which minifigures they put into sets based on their potential value on Bricklink, so they can control the secondary market too. And I'm just like, guys, we don't need the Lego version of Alex Jones here. Like, there is no vast conspiracy theory with our good friends in Denmark making the Lego bricks. Because if they cared about that, they wouldn't have put Captain Rex in a $13 set.
Because Legos, or are they just making stupid amounts of money?
Yeah, I mean, they just took it over because I think purely as a like, look, we recognize this is an important thing for the fan community. I mean, it's not like they significantly raised the prices, the fees or anything. It's just now they control it. But yeah, so if you get the chance, go on there. And right now the voting is happening for Series 6. And there's like 13 pages of entries.
Hmm.
Castle sets are winning a lot of these,
Oh,
which should be sending a message to our aforementioned friends in Denmark that maybe people want castle sets, but apparently they don't get that message. So, yeah,
I think Bobbie here is salty about something.
a little bit, just a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't have the money to spend on them right now anyway. So, and the flip side, like, but I'd probably drop something else, like I don't know, Marvel Legends or something. But yeah, so so anyway, if you get the chance, check that out. I'm if I can get the time to sit down with my laptop and make a video where I screenshot the stuff and put it in the video, I plan on going through and talking about some of the ones I think look really cool. But I need to do it like, well, there's still a couple of weeks left in voting, and I don't know how much longer there is left. So that little project might not come to fruition.
Well, okay, I like Lego Ideas. I like Lego City.
Okay.
I if there's to the one like the five people out there who hate Lego City, I mean, I guess you could say it's become oversaturated.
You mean it's a city that seems to be comprised entirely of fire departments, police departments, hospitals, and airports, which implies that there's a whole lot of injuries and people trying to get the hell out?
Or it's a large, or it's a tourist attraction.
Yeah. So, since you mentioned city, let me ask you, and especially since what we just mentioned, do you like when they kind of go off the beaten path? like like a couple of years ago, all the police sets were as if it was in like rural Colorado instead of like New York City.
Uh, at the time I was like, "What's this?" But now I kind of appreciate, like the more obscure police sets, like whenever it wasn't just super urban and it was like rural, foresty, woodland police.
Yeah. What about uh, what about their current seeming obsession with food trucks?
I don't know why there's so many food trucks.
Like I haven't put them together, but I've got a couple. Eventually I was like, because if I bought the first couple, though, it's like, oh, these are novelties. This would be cool. Like if I ever actually build my the gigantic buildings, what the hell, the modulars that I've got. I'll have some stuff to put in the street. But then like they just kind of kept making them, and I'm like, this is never going to end. Like I'm just need to stop and like be a little more selective in what I'm buying here. But yeah, I don't know what the I don't know. There's other weird things if you actually really pay attention. Like I think they're somewhat like obsessed with like toilet stuff too, because there's several construction sets that either have like an outhouse or like they're smashing something with a sledgehammer, like it's a toilet. It's like of all the things you could have left of the structure, like why do we keep coming back to that?
Or it reminds me of like the one police station where the jail cell had an escape hatch through the toilet.
Yeah. Else, someone watched something. Wow. Holy space in that one. Shouldn't have even brought that up. Oh God.
Yeah, I suppose there is some odd things in Lego City if you do pay enough attention. Like,
Oh my God, Owen. How am I spacing the name of this movie? You might have even seen this one too. It's based on a Stephen King book. It's not The Green Mile.
I don't read Stephen King books.
Oh God, it's got the main character's name is Andy Dufresne. It's played by Tim Robbins. It's got Morgan Freeman in it. Clancy Brown, the guy that played the Kurgan. Wow. Keep going. I have to look this up now. Like
Well, no,
I'm completely spacing this, and this is a problem.
yeah,
I'm gonna look very foolish in this video. I can't have that.
yeah. You notice like that Lego City doesn't have like a supermarket.
The Shawshank Redemption.
The Shawshank.
Have you seen that?
I've not seen it, but I figured that you might have been talking about it. I
Yeah.
have.
So yeah, the Shawshank Redemption, because Andy Dufresne escapes prison through the sewer pipes.
No, like Lego City's got police stations. I mean, it's got some basics of infrastructure. Like it has banks that are constantly being robbed.
Well, I mean, it's got like a couple town square sets.
But like, where's like the gas station?
They used to have some gas station sets. They actually used to have them Shell branded gas station sets.
Back before Shell kind of.
Well, back before like they stopped whatever agreement they have. I have some printed parts with the Shell logo on them. But you had those, then you had Octan, and I think that's the current one, and I think that's just a fake brand, but I'm not 100% certain.
No, yeah, Octane's like a fake brand, but it's not like a real gas company.
Yeah, I mean they make them very sporadically, but they do make them, and that's one of the things like with City that I wish they would make a few more things like that. Like where, like you said, where's the grocery store? You know,
Where's my supermarket? Where's my convenience store?
yeah, where's a post office?
A post.
Like
Where?
like there are post office sets, but they're like twice as old as you are. So, they were a while ago. I mean, I've got like a postal plane that I think is from 10 years ago, maybe.
You know, Lego City doesn't even like have a school.
There you go.
They have like
I don't even know if they have a school bus set.
I think like the only school set I can remember. I think they made one, but it's like preschool.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you're missing these basics. Now, I would say you're missing the houses, but I think those all just got shifted over to Creator. because those are basically the scale that the rest of the city's in, and that like the 3-to-1 sets. You
Lego
know,
Creator is another thing that I enjoy. But yeah, like I mean, you do. I mean, just like even like a small house is bigger than your typical Lego City set. Well, and yeah, I mean it's a city. You're not really gonna have your standard houses, but you can't just have a apartment. It has to be attached to another building, which is where the Lego Creator sets Creator Expert, not Creator 3-in-1.
well, there was a Creator 3-in-1, fairly recent, that was like a street. It was like a couple different things, and if you looked at the back and you had pretty good like spatial orientation in your mind, you could see that if you bought three of them and built each model, that they were meant to connect to make a longer street that goes both ways, and it would actually have several buildings in it. It took a minute staring at it to realize how it all had to go together, but it was definitely made to do that. Kind
Yeah,
of like the 3-in-1 castle that's been out for like 5 years now or however long, because I don't think they're ever going to retire it, because they keep seeing the same videos I do. We're like, well, if you buy 6 of these, you can build this awesome castle. And I'm just like, so for $600, I can build that? Like, why don't I just buy the $400 castle and like $200 worth of parts off Bricklink and make another one? You know? So, but that one has three different builds, but they're designed so if you have three of them, you build each one and you put them all together to make one large castle. Like they're designed to be able to do that. You have tons of parts left over for like filling in any gaps or anything you want to. I wish I could find the post because someone was like, I bought two of these. I built the castle, this one alternate model, and I had this pile of parts. So then I was able to do this with it, and I was like, that looks really impressive. Now I can't find it, and I have two of those. So I'm stuck. But yeah, I like some of the 3-in-1s. Usually it's like I like one of the three models.
yeah, that
There's not many that I'm like, I like all three of these. That has happened with one set. It's a space one. Like it comes with a robot minifigure. I actually do like all three of the models. One's like a mech, one's like a speeder, one's like a jet.
yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I think we got like 8 of them. So I have multiples of each model built.
No, yeah, I have a couple. Actually think I just have one modular set.
At the moment, I just have one because I had 3 and I sold 2 of them recently, ish. But I still have the Parisian restaurant.
Mm.
I haven't put it together. Uh, Now I want the hotel. That's like the weirdly angled one.
Oh yeah, I considered getting that at one point, but I don't have the money for it right now.
Well, yeah, that's my perpetual problem with these. That's why I don't have the $400 castle or the 200 some odd dollar village or the $200 remake of the El Dorado Fortress from the Pirates line. And why I'm also a little bit behind on my Christmas Village sets. I need to get the one that right now is on its last leg because it's going to go out of production real soon. I need to get it like tonight, probably because double points.
I mean, like the last super big expensive set I bought was the Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah,
set from Lego Ideas because I was actually like, hey, I want this, I like this, I'm gonna actually get it.
yeah, totally get it. That's why I bought the Marvel Legends HasLab Sentinel. It's a 26-inch tall minifigure or action figure.
It's like,
I still haven't taken it out of the box, but you know, it's to scale with the Marvel Legends figures for how big a Sentinel is supposed to be. It's over 4 times as tall as a regular Marvel Legends figure. So I only mention that because just yesterday, earlier today, I think it's earlier today, at the New York Comic Con, we'll come back to Lego here in a second, it's a little side version. They unveiled a new stupidly gigantic Sentinel figure. It's 22 inches tall, but it's based off the X-Men '97 cartoon. so it looks like the older comic book appearance, whereas the one I have from the HasLab is from the Krakoa era, like the House of X, Powers of X. So this one is like half the price. It also doesn't come with like extra figures and a bunch of extra parts. It's got like some battle damage parts, like some energy blasts, but it does have all the articulation that it should have, like the knees, the ankles, and everything else. So I'm contemplating buying a couple. Part of the reason is because I won't be charged until they ship, which will be like a year from now. And some guy's already done the math on how much money you got to start setting aside per month, depending on how many you buy. So,
Oh,
like, not that that was hard math to do, but like the fact someone's already done it, it's great. Uh, yeah, so I'm probably actually going to be doing a video specifically about that later. But
no, I like a lot of the Lego lines. I can't say that there's any. I mean, even the discontinued ones.
well, I don't want to ruin your train of thought, but I do have a couple quick questions. Did you like the Dungeons and Dragons set?
Oh yeah, I liked it a lot.
Okay. Do you have any of the collectible figures yet?
I have all the collectible
Oh,
figures.
you do. Okay. I have most of them, but I have multiples of several of them. Now that's intentional because I've got the little barcode scanner. So I've got like 5 of the Dragonborn Paladins now. Pales in comparison to some I've seen. I don't need legions of them. I just wanted a few because I really like the torso and the armor. I do have like 2 or 3 of the Mind Flayers on purpose,
Well,
and I think those are the only ones I have like in huge multiples. So, because I didn't see a point in a second Strahd, I didn't see a point in a second Zaz Tam or the Lady of Pain. Um, I might get. I bought the Tiefling to give to someone else, but I put it together and I didn't realize it came with a second head to make it a male Tiefling if you wanted to.
no, yeah, like a lot of the generic like PC minifigures have additional heads
Yeah,
for female or male.
yeah. So I might buy 1 or 2 of those for myself. Plus, I really like the little dragon that comes with it. And I have the. I only have the one of. Is it a half elf bard?
Yeah,
And I got one of the Githyanki, one of the. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's gone now. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I've got several of them. I don't have them all, but
no, yeah. I have the set. I like it. It's got it's got little details. I mean, I'm pretty sure like it even comes with like an adventure. You can run it like that. Although from what I've heard online, it's not balanced at all.
well, that's all right. You know, Wendy's made their own adventure. Actually, I think it's like a whole RPG system.
Well, yeah, but Wendy's is also the only fast food restaurant to actively diss people online, and I mean
You talk about their Twitter account.
multiple corporate. I mean, like corporate Twitter is like that, but Wendy's has actually had good insults.
Yeah,
I don't know who they hired, but that person keep doing it.
it's Wendy.
Wendy herself.
Yeah, it's Dave Thomas's adopted daughter. Serious.
No,
Like
no,
I don't know if she's really the one running. I'm not. I'm serious about that part, but it's named after his adopted daughter. Uh,
no. Yeah, like I like all the minifigures that came in the set and the collectible ones. I mean,
so like, I mean, for future collectible minifigures, I mean, you just kind of keep going. But where would you go with other sets?
oh, other Dungeons and Dragons sets.
Yeah, without just being like castle sets, essentially.
No, I'm joking. Because if dungeon leans into castle, mm, you know, I mentioned this and I should have had a response prepared, but I didn't really.
Oh, that's right, because I don't know either. Like, I was just curious if you there was anything you could think of.
I mean, you could probably have like, you know, sets that are just like creatures with minifigures.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could definitely do like creature encounters.
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's out in the forest where the displacer beast is, or isn't.
Well, well,
Little displacer beast joke there for you folks.
they, well, I mean, in the giant Red Dragon's Tail Lego Ideas D&D set, they, I mean, you have the big red dragon, but they also had a beholder,
Yeah,
a displacer beast, and an owl bear. Also, gelatinous cube.
yeah. There you go.
So they're hitting all the hallmarks.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure they'd come up with something if they really wanted to pursue it.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they come up with something. I just don't know right now.
So you're saying about discontinued lines.
Yes, like I don't have a lot of sets from like discontinued lines. Like I have older sets from lines that are still going. Like I have old Star Wars sets. I have old Lego City sets, but like I have a couple Lord of the Rings sets
You know,
that are half assembled. Um, I had sets from Alien Conquest. That was neat.
yeah.
But you want to know about like I don't and I as I said before, I don't actively hate on any of the Lego lines except for Lego Friends.
Oh, Lego Friends. Boy, I was gonna guess that before you said it. I was like, no, I'm gonna see where he's going with this.
I mean, I, I guess I'm a half joking, half not. I mean, the minifigures are completely different from all the other Lego minifigures. They have no leg articulation, and like you know, it's such a desperate appeal to, hey girls, look, we get you.
Well,
There's horses.
well, I don't know if I'd call it a desperate appeal because I don't know if you've been around whenever your dad and I have talked about it a couple times, but Lego actually spent several years researching because have you ever seen their previous attempts to appeal to girls, like Paradisa and some of the other things?
Oh,
They were literally just like, here's regular Lego sets, but with like pink or like pastel. Like girls like restaurants and things, right? Here you go. Is Lego just throwing crap at the wall to see what would stick? Well, all those ventures failed. So they're like, let's take a step back and actually do some research here. Why are we failing? And after years of research, they actually found out something that's very insightful and could potentially explain, much like that comment I made earlier, could explain some things for why the world works the way it does. So they figured out that boys and girls fundamentally approach toys differently. Okay?
yeah.
Like, if a boy is playing with a Batman figure, he pretends to be Batman. Okay? He doesn't pretend to be himself dressed as Batman. He doesn't put his personality into it. He pretends like he is Batman. He's like, I'm Batman, and things like that. He does things that Batman would do. Okay? For girls, it's like the opposite of that. They put themselves, they envision themselves as the character. Okay? They do what they would do in that character situation. Okay? So they pretend that the figure represents them, whereas boys pretend to be the thing the figure represents. Okay? And that's a very fundamental difference.
Mm.
All right? And also explains a lot of like why men and women seem to have different interests because they literally are looking at things differently. Okay? That's not always the case. I mean, like I've said in other videos, there are plenty of women who like the same things men do. And, so many guys out there who are like, oh, that's a fake geek girl or something. Like, odds are pretty good she's not. Just saying. But, yeah, so that's why they figure out. That's why the figures are different. That's why they're basically dolls. That's why they call them mini dolls, actually. And that's why there's like the broad range. So any girl can find one that actually looks like her if she tries. And that's why they're mostly girls. And that's why they're doing things girls want to do. So, because then they can envision themselves doing things they want to do. But also, if you look really closely, they're the same scale as regular Lego sets. They're scaled for regular Lego figures to work with.
Hmm.
So that's why like all the houses are roughly the same size and everything. So they can work with Lego sets, regular Lego sets,
Hmm.
which is genius because you get the girls in there, they buy the friend sets, and they're like, hey, I like the way that creator house looks too. This will work with the figures I've already got. I'm going to buy that too. And you got boys, some of them will be like, I know it's a girl set, but that is a well designed thing over there. I'd kind of like that. Like, I've seen a few friend sets that I'm like, if I had the room, because they're bigger, it's like if I had the room, I'd buy them because they look like they're well designed. And they'd fit right in with city sets. Some because they're not just like they don't just like look like a pastel pinata exploded on them or something. So, but yeah, I get not liking them. We're literally not the target audience for them, so I get not liking
Lego hasn't had like a dedicated Wild West theme.
them. You know, well, it did at one point. There was a Wild West theme for a little while. Uh, I'm actually surprised Lego ever had a Wild West theme because if you look at all their other themes, look at Castle. That is strictly European. Like there aren't castles on other continents, like as envisioned in castle sets.
Yeah.
There are stone fortresses; they're just not castles. Except for that little detour that Castle made into the Ninja series for a while, because there are Japanese castles.
Yeah.
Uh, but predominantly, they're the European style. Pirates, well, that's global. City, town, before it, well, every continent has cities and towns. The Wild West is like so specifically American to a specific time period to one that like if they did that today, like they would definitely catch some shit for it because there were Indians in there too, and it's like, gee, who are the soldiers going after here? Like, there's some unfortunate implications for what's happening here.
I mean, there was like 5 Lone Ranger sets back in 2013.
Yeah, yeah,
That was probably the last we're ever gonna see of.
yeah. Well, maybe. Like I said, I don't know that they'd make them today, but on the flip side, they keep flirting with pirate stuff, and the pirates had the Islanders. You know, like it's not like pirates were particularly nice to natives at various points. I'm sure,
No.
but like they were there. So I don't know. Like Lego's in a weird place sometimes with things like that. I mean, like with Castle, oh, we won't make any modern weapons, but we'll make these where we know these people are fighting in siege warfare against each other and hacking and slashing people to death, all with smiley faces. That was the thing that always got me about the old Legos. It's all the generic Lego smiley face before Pirates came out, where they're suddenly like, give that man a beard, give that guy an eye patch, give that guy both.
Give that guy a mustache.
Yeah, because like up to that point, it was all just the smiley face, and you're just like especially with Castle, it's like it shows them in battle with each other, and you're like, these guys really love their jobs.
Well, Lego people can't feel pain. And I mean, but they can lose limbs.
Yeah, yeah, just like Castle has the implied violence to it. Everyone is armed.
Pirates too.
Pirates, they had guns, and Lego's like, oh, we're not going to make guns. Like, okay, we'll make guns from the 1700s, okay, but not modern guns.
Okay, and then they changed that again with revolvers and rifles.
Yeah, and it's like we won't make guns in Star Wars. We'll give them the megaphones with like little red things on them. Then a couple years later, all right, here's the laser blasters. Go at it.
Well, I mean, and then even I mean, and then Lego would Lego has a Tommy gun mold.
Yeah,
That's the 40s, and then they even have like a machine pistol mold.
yeah,
That's modern day weaponry.
yeah. You know that's why you know that the first Lego castle's yellow, right? Did you
Yeah,
know that?
yeah, because they didn't want gray.
Because they didn't want to have so many gray parts in a set, so people couldn't build like tanks and jets with them. That's why. So ridiculous. Then they were like, well, it didn't work out. Gray castles it is. We'll put a bunch of wall panels in there. Let's see you make a tank out of that. I'm sure some guy out there is like, challenge accepted. You ready to see a Panzer tank made out of wall panels? Yeah, I mean, I get Lego not wanting to make military sets. I understand
I mean,
that. Because it does kind of fly in the face of, they do promote themselves as an educational toy. And, I get it. You know, it's just that then they've got all these other sets where clearly there is conflict occurring. Like, the police are arresting somebody, and
it's
they're not just grabbing them until they can handcuff them. Like, they're like, get down. Stop! What are you going to do? Well, nothing. Well, then no.
hey,
Well, Sarge has got us. I mean, what can we do? Nothing, Johnson. You know that. But, no, because, like,
no. You
like
see,
the,
that's why they have the net launchers.
there you go. The net launcher. I should have considered that. But, like, classic space, up until, I would say up until the Blacktron figures came out, but even there, it's not them. It's really with Space Police that they implied the Blacktrons were the bad guys.
The Blacktron.
Yeah. Yes, I'm aware saying that out loud how that sounds. Um, but like classic space, it was all just space guys doing like science stuff out in space.
What we do in space.
Yeah, they just had different colored outfits. That was it. There were no like factions or anything. Then you had Futuron, which took that idea and just kind of added, it was a little more fantastical. Um, and again, just different colored outfits. And now they had visors so they wouldn't, suffocate like the old guys would. And then they made Blacktron. It was they're all black outfits, with like designs on them, black helmets, black visors. All their sets were mostly black parts with like yellow highlights. And it's like, okay. Then the Space Police came, and all the people they're arresting in the sets are all Blacktron guys. And it's kind of like, so I guess Blacktron's the bad guy? It's like, then Mtron came around, and that's a group that'll probably never be remade. Magnets. They had a bunch of magnets in the sets.
Oh,
Like, they could remake them, but they'd have to find some way around putting magnets in the sets. Like the last collectibles line before the D&D, the space set, they had an Mtron figure in there, but there's no magnet on it.
yeah.
So, I mean, they might. But them, it's clear that like they're miners or something, and then the Blacktron guys are attacking them. Although I think that's Blacktron 2, who inexplicably had white outfits. It's called Blacktron, solid white, but a neon green B on the chest for Blacktron.
They had a rebrand.
Yeah. And so Lego, like modern incarnation Lego, doesn't seem to know which way they want to go with them. Because they had a rebuild of one of their sets as a gift with purchase thing, but it was one of the all black sets. Okay? But then in that series of figures I just mentioned, the Blacktron guy is a white uniform Blacktron guy. Also, he's like a weird mutant. Like one side has two arms and like a weird mutant leg. So clearly, like those guys are dealing with radiation or something that shouldn't be. Too many magnets from the Mtrons.
The ship's reactors leaking.
Yeah. And then, like in Space Police 3, there's a couple rando guys that have the Blacktron symbol, and if I remember it, some of them are white outfitted, some of them are black outfitted. So it's like Lego doesn't know which way they want to go with it.
Blacktron had a civil war and split off into two splinter
There
groups.
we go. That could definitely be what it is. But no, then there's Ice Planet. That like I'd love to see them bring those back because those sets were just bizarre. Blue and white, neon orange cockpit glass. Everyone had chainsaws, and like instead of the normal flat visor, it actually had like a built-in kind of like visor kind of thing going out, and like a little antenna. And they got a figure too in that set. It's a woman with like a cybernetic penguin and a new style chainsaw and like big bulky armor.
A woman?
Well, there was a woman. Yeah, that was the first set that had the first space series that had a woman figure in it.
Progressive.
It was, and also an old man. This guy with like a big bushy white beard. Then a younger guy that had like white eyebrows because they're frozen because they're on an ice planet, I guess. Those also had magnets, but they could do without the magnets on that one because it's ice planet, not magnet planet. And yeah, then you had Space Police 2, was because the Space Police, the first set, looked like the Futuron guys, but they just had like red visors, and the configuration on the chest is a little bit different. And then Space Police 2, instead of being like black and blue with red highlights, they were mostly dark gray with green highlights. And I've got like their big tank someplace. They came with their commander because they had like the pirate epaulets, because you'd clearly have those out in space, you know. Um, yeah, like there's definitely some interesting stuff in space along the ways. I just kind of wish that some of it would have been a little bit more cohesive, because like with Castle, some of those factions lasted for a couple of years, and like the figures would still keep showing up later on down the line. But here is like mostly one and done once they started to go into like the Futuron and Blacktron and all that. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what they do with the current space because, like I said, they've got a polybag for next year for space. So I'm hoping that means there's new sets.
I mean, we still have Lego City space sets.
Well, that's the ones I'm talking about, like the current ones.
Yeah.
But also, I know that the bulk of them are city, but some of them aren't. Like there's a couple Technic ones that are branded for that space. There's a couple Friends sets that are branded for space. And then of course there's the minifigure set. Um, Something else too. Oh, there's a couple creator sets that are branded for space also. And so I think it's more just like space. And they just spread it out.
Well, yeah. You mentioned conflict, so I guess I'll bring it up again. Well, I mean, you had Alien Conquest, which was an alien invasion of Earth.
Yeah, yeah. And then I don't remember if it was before or after that the space series. I can't think what the subgroup was called, but they were clearly fighting aliens, like the bugs.
Oh, like Mars Attacks?
Uh,
Was no,
no.
that was
Um,
something different.
yeah, that was like Mars exploration or something. There were Martians in there, but I think it was supposed to be peaceful coexistence with those guys. I think it's been a while because like the Earthlings definitely had like battle mechs, and I think that maybe they're trying to capture the Martians into tubes or something. It's been a long time since I've seen them. All I know is I think that's where like a lot of the sand, like sand green, came from, if I remember right, the color. Um, but no, these were right around the time of the alien conquest, either like just before, or just after, and kind of like Futuron, the human side was like color coded, and then you had like the bugs, and they were like bug guys in giant bug things, you know. And I actually have that whole series too.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. That does ring a bell.
And I just can't think of what they were called. But yeah, so I mean, you've had conflict. out there. Then Space Police 3 came along. One of the sets is they're definitely like arresting a space pimp. The dude has like a purple limousine. He's like decked out like a pimp, but he's an alien, you know? And it's like, Lego, what are you doing here?
they're they're experimenting.
Yeah.
They're stepping forward no man's gone before.
Yeah, well, that's like some of the collectible figure series. Like I think the first series has zombies in it, and at times people are like, zombies, as in like that eat people.
With exposed organs and all that.
Yeah,
And then, well, there was the Monster Hunter series, which,
yeah,
hey kids, you want zombies? You want blood? Blood in a Lego set?
yeah. Although the set that had the most zombies, good luck getting that one. That was like a Target exclusive that lasted for like 3 months or something, and then just disappeared, and now goes for some ungodly amount of money. It's a cemetery set,
Well, yeah.
and yeah, it's ridiculous how much that one just exploded. I've got the mansion, the haunted mansion from that. I haven't put it together, but I've got one. It's gigantic. I think it's bigger than some of the modulars.
Oh yeah. No, because there was the haunted castle set. No, you're talking about the haunted mansion.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's massive.
yeah. I have had a couple copies of the castle, but I think I sold them or I stripped them down for parts or something.
No, I mean you also had like Lego Power Miners.
Yeah, yeah. The Power Miners, which was like a follow up to Rock Raiders,
Oh yeah, Power Miners and Rock Raiders.
and I didn't know this, but Chad was telling me this. I guess the Rock Raiders should technically have been like a sub theme from space. Those guys weren't mining on Earth. They were like off on some alien planet doing all that.
And they were trying to get the natural resources from the native inhabitants.
Yeah, the rock monsters.
How do we know they're monsters?
Well, fair point, Owen. Fair point.
I,
Yeah. Then at some point, Lego actually made like city mining sets because I have like the mine.
yeah, those were. I wanted to get those. I never did though.
I've got the mine, and I think that's about it. I've got like a small like 4-wheeler or something that has like a miner like hauling dynamite.
Which theme I just remembered?
So that
Like Lego Atlantis.
I still have some of those sets. You'll pardon the pun, floating around, sealed in fact, because I've been trying to offload them. But are you interested?
Maybe actually, I don't know.
Well, I'll give you a link to my Breaklink store. I'll give you a discount.
Uh, I, okay, well, you better actually send me that. I'm serious.
I'll just find out which ones I've got. I've got them all in the storage building.
Well, no, I mean,
So I've got those. I might still have some of the second Egyptian sets.
oh yeah,
I think I still got a random Prince of Persia set or two laying around somewhere.
but I mean, and then Legos taking on other themes. I mean, Star Wars. It's not Star Peace and Roses,
Yeah, yeah,
or I mean, Ninjago. They got swords, and
yeah.
I mean, Lego Batman. What do you think he does? Tell them to reform themselves?
Well, I think in theory that's supposed to be what's happening in Arkham, but
Well, no, he's Batman. He's gonna beat the ever loving.
yeah,
Well, I mean, if we're going by like Batman the animated series, he does try to talk to them. He doesn't want to fight them, except the Joker. He knows the Joker can't be saved.
yeah. Well, that was one thing I liked about the. I never did buy it. It was the smaller Batmobile from the Adam West TV show because I know they've got like the high end one they just released, but this was the smaller one. It came with Batman, Joker, and I think Robin. And the Joker was clearly supposed to be the Cesar Romero Joker because on the face it had where the mustache was because Cesar Romero didn't shave his mustache. They just put the white paint over it because he refused to shave it.
Yeah.
So like the minifigure had that little detail on it too, and I was like, man, I need to buy this. I kept telling myself that for like a year and a half, then it was gone. I was like, So now it's, man, I should have bought that. I could probably still get it for retail because it took forever for that to sell out. Plus, the Adam West Batman series is spectacular if you've never seen it.
No, but yeah, I mean, what other Lego themes? I mean, Shima was.
I have some Chima sets. I bought them all for the minifigures, though, because I was like, animal people, this is never going to happen again.
Well, no, I mean, in today's climate, I feel as if Lego doesn't want to touch that again.
Well, they're not going to make a set based on the island of Dr. Moreau.
No, I mean,
I wouldn't either. The movies have been quite bad.
no, but yeah, I mean, I think Shima was actually pretty successful. They just kind of ended it. Well, animal people, you had the Lantean, Ninjago has snake people. What are you talking about?
I have plenty of snake people. And I have the fish and shark people from Atlantis. Some squid guys. Oh, those are mainly to act as like Cthulhu cultists.
I don't even want to know what you're doing over there.
Yeah. Let's see.
Lego Duplo. They made the pieces big.
I actually saw a thing at the Indianapolis Children's Museum. There, for a while, they actually had like a bunch of Lego stuff there for Lego Castle on display. And I saw a brilliant use of some Duplo blocks, gray ones, to build the outer wall for a castle. Because you know that the Duplo blocks are compatible with the small blocks, right?
Yes.
So use those to build up until you start needing detail. Then you put the smaller blocks on top and start going.
Well, I mean, they're bigger so that children don't like try to eat them.
Well, sure, but also like you can build walls really fast with them without using a lot of parts.
Yeah, so
I can never figure out where on earth they got all the gray Duplo blocks. Looks like I looked for them. There was like a Duplo castle. I've got the feeling they were like the moment that came out, some of these guys were like the promised land at last and bought like 20 of them.
no, like, I mean, you want to know which Lego theme I don't like? Lego Juniors. It's just the other sets, but they made them smaller so that kids could build them. But then they also jacked up the price.
Yeah, I've only ever bought one. The space one from the current space line. Because I was like, I actually kind of want most of these space sets. I'm kind of curious. Although I actually have multiples of it because I found a lot of them on clearance.
But, I mean, you can't even really call them Lego Juniors. Like there was a Lego Juniors for Jurassic World. I don't know if you get the source material. But that's dinosaurs eating people.
Yeah, yeah,
Or Lego Juniors for Star Wars. I don't get if you know the source material. There's people shooting at each other.
and lopping limbs off with laser swords. So, Owen, what do you think just in general of like all the licensed themes? Do you think it's a does it bring down the brand? Does it help the brand?
Well, it's certainly made them more profitable.
Yeah, they do charge more for them.
I can't. I'm not going to say that. There's been good ones like Star Wars, Marvel, DC. Then there's been some hit or miss ones like The Lone Ranger.
Well, I mean that's part of the greater Disney license, so that's why there were the Prince of Persia sets also. And
Yeah, I suppose so.
but yeah, they're shaky sometimes.
And then there was those. I don't know what other.
Well, I mean, as part of the Disney line, you also had the Toy Story. You've had the various Disney princesses have all had sets. Um, you've got right now, you've got the Mario sets with the weirdo figures that are not minifigures.
Yeah, the Mario sets like they couldn't make Mario minifigure. That's just not how he looks. But then they made him into like a block.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I haven't bought any of them. So
I mean, Toad looks fine, but you can't recreate Mario like that.
yeah. Then you've got, excuse me, Right. And you've also got there was the couple like the spinoff for Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. You've got the Sonic the Hedgehog sets right now.
You have, well, Lego Dungeons and Dragons.
There's Dragons.
The
There's a couple Transformer sets where they're like, "Hey Hasbro, can we just like make some of your toys with our toys instead?" I can't wait for those GI Joe Lego sets though.
I mean,
Bring on the Lego Mass device or the Weather Dominator. That'll never happen.
I mean,
It might happen.
and then even some of Lego's own brands have had collabs. Like they made like in their Speed Champions line, they have the car from the Fast and the Furious,
You know,
and they also have the Aston Martin from
from Bond, from probably the one from Goldfinger.
no, it's from like the Daniel Craig Bond.
Yeah, that's the one from Goldfinger.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's the same car, same type of car. I don't know if it's the exact same actual car they used in Goldfinger, but it's the same model and everything. That's why. Have you seen the movie that he uses it in? It's in Skyfall.
I've not actually seen a Bond movie, even though I have the set.
Well, you are seriously missing out. Is all I can tell you. But there's a part where this one notoriously has an ejector seat, and so this is also how I know for sure it's the same car because he's having to drive M out to trying to find some place to escape from Javier Bardem's character, and so he's getting a little tired of her lip. And the gear shifter, you flip up the top, and that's where the button is. And he does that, and she's like, "Oh, sure, fine. You just go ahead and blast me out with the ejector seat." And he's just like, "Don't tempt me."
I, I've heard that the Craig movies are hit or miss.
I liked him. You just have to accept that it's a different take on Bond,
It's trying to be more realistic.
trying to be, and that kind of works. But you're talking to someone that really likes the Roger Moore era of Bond, which is like as unserious as it could possibly be while still kind of being serious. Because like Roger Moore,
He was
each of the actors played him differently. Like Sean Connery, I do consider Connery to be the best one, like flat out. He is that like I think it's I think the expression is the devil may care attitude, is in like he knows full well what his job is. He's not a spy. He's an assassin. That's Bond's job. You know, they dress it up, but he doesn't spy. He doesn't industrial saboteur. He kills people. That's what his job. His job is to find out who needs to be killed and then to kill them.
and he doesn't care how many other lackeys are going to get in his
Right.
way.
So Connery had that like that gallows humor about him. You know, like he would joke, but like you could tell he was serious about what he was doing. Then after him, well, during his run, George Lazenby takes over for one movie, where some of the only things that ever carry over to the other movies occur, and then he's gone, and then Connery comes back for I think his Diamonds Are Forever, and then it goes into Roger Moore. Roger Moore, he's a little more like plays it more like he's like an aristocratic playboy kind of thing. He jokes a lot more. Still kills people, but you know he jokes a lot more about it. And then you had Timothy Dalton for two movies, and he's just like 100% deadpan serious. You know, like his is like that real stiff British humor when he occasionally has a joke, but for the most part, he's like, "I'm here to kill people, and that's what's going to happen now." And then you had Pierce Brosnan, who was, in my opinion, I liked him as Bond. He was a little of some of the others here and there. Like he had the jokes, he had like the smirks and the smarminess of Roger Moore, but also the more serious moments from Connery and Dalton. And then Craig is a reboot but for some reason kept Judy Dench on as M. The only way you can look at it differently. Well, then there's the Aston Martin problem. It only makes sense if he was Bond back then, you know. And so like the Craig movies just like really throw everything for a loop because it's clear the first couple if we're to assume that it's been the same man all this time, the first couple have to take place before all the other movies. This is literally when he earns his double O status. Then all the other movies happen, and now he's like the old beat up, I've been through the ringer Bond, and it just doesn't work. Okay, and all the homages begin to hurt the movies because it's like, so is this supposed to be the same guy or not?
Is it?
Well, I don't know. And the other problem is it destroyed one fan theory that would have explained everything. That Bond was just a name that they gave to the agent. But the problem is in Skyfall, you see his parents' grave. His actual name is James Bond. Like, that's not just a code name that they give to whoever comes in next after the last guy dies or retires. So they're like, no, no, he is James. That is his real name, which also makes him the worst spy in the universe. Every place he goes in, Bond, James Bond. And it's like, why are you giving them your real name? What are you doing? Like, and of course the bad guys know who James Bond is. Because, like, well, we've heard of you. You've killed like 20 of our people already, just in like the 10 minutes it took you to get here from the airport.
I mean, he's used fake names in some of the movies.
Every once in a while he does. But whenever he does, he's going up against people that have like resources that within 2 minutes know who he really is. Like he tries that in it's not the Living Daylights. I mean, he might try the Living Daylights. It's been forever since I've seen that one. Um, a View to a Kill, where Christopher Walken's the villain in that one. He's the product of Russian genetic engineering or something. It ends with a Zeppelin fight over the Golden Gate Bridge. It's great. But anyway, other than that absurdity, uh, also, for whatever it's worth, I never thought I'd ever would have considered that I actually kind of rooted for one of the Bond villains to succeed, but in that one, in hindsight, I kind of do. Max Zorin was his name. He was going to blow up Silicon Valley. And like in hindsight, I'm kind of like, might not be a bad thing. But so
What was the other one?
which other one?
Bond villain you're rooting for?
I don't know. I'd have to think on that. I kind of felt bad for Javier Bardem's character in Skyfall. Like he got captured or something, and tried to use the suicide capsule, and it didn't kill him. It just like really screwed up his face because like they capture him because he's clearly out for revenge at this point, right? And he's like one of the only other like old school spies left out there, and so he's after M for revenge. And she's like, well, you could have at least had the decency to kill yourself. He's like, well, I tried. Check this out. Like pulls this thing out that's holding his cheek out, and like his face just like collapses in. And he's like, yeah, your suicide pill didn't work. Thanks. And so like they just like left him hung out to dry. And I was kind of like, M's probably got this one coming. Like I mean, he's evil. He's like killing a bunch of innocent people in the process. He also deserves to die. But like, he might have a point. So kind of agreed with him. Uh, kind of agreed with Sean Bean's character in Goldeneye. I mean, Bond really did just leave him to die at the beginning of the movie. He didn't know yet that he was a double agent. And then Bond reset the timers on the bombs without telling him. So, I mean, admittedly, Bond thought he was dead. So there's no need to tell a corpse, hey, the timers got cut in half. You might want to get out of here. So then the building blows up and burned half of his face. Then he was like, well, the British really screwed over my people at the end of World War II. He's a Cossack. His parents were. They turned him back over to Stalin, who, did what Stalin did to everyone he didn't like. And he's like, so I'm going to get revenge on the British government and like the rest of the British people by firing the GoldenEye satellite and eliminating all your electronic records because it's a massive electromagnetic pulse weapon. After I steal all the money from your banks 5 minutes before that, which you won't be able to trace because I'm going to destroy the records in your end. So as one was like, I get where you're coming from here. Like, I think your anger is justified. I think what you're doing is a little over the top, but I get it. So, yeah. Most of the rest,
Which Bond movies should I watch?
yes.
All of them?
Realistically, yes, and I'd watch them in order. But like, if I had to pick like highlights, you should definitely watch Goldfinger. That's, in my opinion, probably the best Bond movie. Now, it might seem dull to you because I watched it when I was much younger than you. I watched a lot of them when I was a lot younger, and so my brain is able to just like skip over all the really boring parts and just only remembers like the cool action sequences. And now as an adult, I'm like, okay, I get the boring parts. But like as a teenager, I'm like, God, this blows. Because if you ever watch the honest trailers for the Bond franchise, for the Connery Bond movies, like, yeah, I remember all those cool spy scenes. I bet you forgot all those moments where Bond spends time checking into a hotel, doing paperwork, trying to do actual surveillance, throwing his hat onto the hat rack to impress Miss Moneypenny, who he's not going to sleep with, and just like all the just like things that are just total filler in the movies because movies were like that. But no, Goldfinger. Uh, I would say Diamonds Are Forever, but it's a little over the top. I would say You Only Live Twice, where you get to where you get to see them try to make Sean Connery look like a Japanese man by giving him black hair and dyeing his skin, and then he marries a Japanese woman as a cover story. Unfortunately, she gets killed. And but the more important part is you get to see Donald Pleasance as Blofeld, the head of Spectre, with his awesome fortress that's inside of a dormant volcano, where he launches his probes out into space to capture like U.S. and Soviet space things, trying to get the U.S. and Russia to go to nuclear war against each other. Like most of Spectre's plans kind of oscillate between things in space and using nukes to like blow shit up. Like they just kind of keep bouncing back and forth between those two ideas. There's kind of a brain drain over there. You know, when you kill all your people for failure, you're like, but that one's good. Um, yeah, like I said, Diamonds Are Forever is okay. Then for Roger Moore, Live and Let Die is the super absurd one. There's literally a guy that I think is immortal in that movie. Uh, I can't even think of his name off the top of my head. Doesn't matter. Uh, then Moonraker, massive laser battle out in space. Like that one's excellent. Like the end's just so ludicrously over the top because of that. Uh, oh, yeah. Oh, if you do watch Diamonds Are Forever, just forewarning: the two henchmen that are out like killing a bunch of people for Blofeld are two gay guys. Like they're definitely just like go skipping off holding hands at one point. They're definitely in a relationship with each other, and like the movie just kind of like rolls with it. It's very progressive for a movie from like the early '70s. Uh, Probably don't watch Never Say Never Again. That was where someone successfully sued because they co-wrote the movie Thunderball, and a judge agreed that they had the right to remake that movie as many times as they wanted to, and they convinced Sean Connery to come back for that as James Bond. And it came out the same year as Moonraker. Moonraker just like devastated at the box office because it was like fake Bond, but played by real Bond, who at that point was an old man with gray hair. And everyone's like, we've seen this movie before. Like, we've literally seen this movie before. What is going on here? Uh, if you're going to watch any of the Dalton movies, License to Kill, I think, is the better of the two. It's where he's fighting Colombian drug lords, who their front man on TV as a televangelist is Wayne Newton, the guy who's a performer out in like Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada. Uh, yeah, that one's better than the other one. Pierce Brosnan, GoldenEye is excellent. And in my opinion, The World Is Not Enough is the other of his movies. You see, he did four of them. I don't like the last one. It's kind of absurd. I mean, it goes like way over the top. So if you really want to see that, go for it. And God, I can't think of the name of the other one he made. But like, I've got the feeling I should watch it again because at the time I was like, that's absurd that journalists would try to start World War III to sell newspapers. Modern me is like, no, I can see it. Maybe I need to rewatch that movie. Maybe it's more credible than I thought. The Craig movies, the Quantum of Solace is almost pointless. They literally went in with like no script. I think they finished with no script also. Just kind of filmed some things and hope they could all piece it together. The other three he made that were decent. So
Like, you got Casino Royale.
Casino Royale was decent. The only problem I have with Casino Royale, this is me nitpicking, Bond doesn't go in for Texas Hold'em. Bond goes in for like Baccarat, games that Americans have no clue what the rules are or the stakes or anything, that only like a refined English gentleman would play in like Monte Carlo or something. Not this riffraff Texas Hold'em baloney. You know, Bond is above that, but like it's a Texas Hold'em tournament. I'm just like,
Wait, what?
because like Bond's above that kind of thing. Bond's supposed to sail in, tell you that he wants another two. Somehow that means he wins. You have no idea what the hell's going on. The other person's upset about it. He's betting house money because they know it's him because he's got like a credit line of credit to every casino on the planet.
They couldn't have had like some of the info dump how the game works.
No, no. I have seen Bond play Baccarat in several movies, and I don't have the slightest clue how that game works.
Like,
I've only ever seen it at one casino,
you know,
and I felt too intimidated to even look at it.
poker, blackjack. That's for the simple man.
Exactly. That's like the slot machines to Bond. Like he goes into a Texas Hold'em tournament. I expect him to win in like three hands, like all the money of all the people. Just bluff his way through everything or have the cards magically. But no, Lashif somehow beats him. That's the other thing. Wasn't super impressed with Lashif as a villain. I mean, like in hindsight, it's Mads Mikkelsen. Like he does play good villains, and like he probably did a better job than I think. I was probably still hung up on the whole Texas Hold'em thing.
I think so. I think his entire repertoire is villains.
Well, Galen Erso wasn't a villain, kind of. I mean, he did actually finish the Death Star, but like he also told him how to stop it. That counts for something.
I mean, like, you've seen him play somebody who's not a villain once.
He was a good guy in the remake of Clash of the Titans.
Okay.
That's all I got. Like other than that, he's played like Hannibal Lecter in the prequel series and Lashif and whoever the hell he played in the first Doctor Strange movie. Caecilius, was that his name?
Maybe.
Utterly wasted in that role.
Do you care what his name was?
No, they should actually they should bring him back to play another villain. Be like, look, we all underestimated you back then. We know you can actually play villains. Who do you want to play? You can't play Doom though, even though you're probably the guy that could play Doom.
Yeah, you're right. He probably could.
Yeah, but yeah, now I mean, the other Bond movies are good though, in my opinion.
Is there any bad Bond movie?
Well, you'll probably find parts of On Her Majesty's Secret Service to be absurd. That's the one with George Lazenby, who up to that point was like, I don't know, he's a dancer or something. It's one of the only movies he's in. It's the only time he played Bond. However, Telly Savalas playing Blofeld is good. Telly Savalas is awesome. But I'm going to go ahead and spoil the end of the movie for you here because it's the only thing that like carries over into other Bond movies. Bond gets married at the end of the movie. Okay?
I know what happens.
And well, I'm going to spoil it for everyone else then. So he gets married. He thinks he killed Blofeld just before that point. He quits MI6. Him and his wife driving off to go live happily ever after. Moneypenny's sitting there in tears, knowing she's never going to sleep with Bond now. And I think she's actually like legitimately happy for him. And they're driving along, and Blofeld comes up beside him in a car and like machine guns Bond's car. Bond pulls over. He's like, "That was Blofeld. Let's go get him." And looks over, and his wife took one right between the eyes. And yeah, so the next movie starts. Sean Connery's back as Bond, and it's him hunting down Blofeld to kill that bastard. And he finds like where Blofeld's like made some duplicates of himself. People had plastic surgery, and he kills them. Then he finds Blofeld with another duplicate later on, kills that duplicate, and yeah, it just keeps going. So, like, it's directly referenced in the next movie. That's the only time continuity had ever mattered up to that point in the Bond movies, other than whenever the head of Spectre mentions that Doctor No from the first movie was one of their agents, and Bond took him out. That's one of their From Russia with Love is a really good one. So then into the Roger Moore movies. The first Roger Moore movie is him at his wife's gravesite in the opening of the movie. And then he's like flying along in a helicopter, and like Blofeld takes control of the helicopter, and then Bond kills Blofeld finally. He's in like a wheelchair, and he like hooks him with the helicopter and drops it down like a smokestack in a power plant. But they can't call him Blofeld because they lost the rights to Blofeld and Spectre and all that for that lawsuit stupidity I mentioned. And then in the Timothy Dalton era, the second movie, his friend Felix Leiter gets married, and his wife, tosses him the thing, and he just kind of, just kind of smiles and walks away, and she's like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "Oh, he was married once. She died." It's like it's one of the only things that ever gets mentioned, and it's in the one movie that has just the guy that's in just the one movie that no one likes. It's like the only continuity thing that ever gets mentioned ever again. It's crazy. But yeah, yeah. I mean, they're all good. Almost all of the Connery ones are great. You could probably skip Doctor No, in my opinion. It's not so great. It's
Isn't
kind of slow.
isn't that the first one?
That's the first one. Yes, and I would probably start like with From Russia with Love. That one's good, and then Goldfinger. Because Goldfinger is like the prototype for like a lot of the other Bond movies afterwards. Because Connery fights Spectre in almost all the movies except for Goldfinger. Goldfinger is the billionaire industrialist who has some sinister plot, except he is not trying to destroy the world. He just wants to make his gold worth more money.
Yeah.
He's going to detonate an atomic bomb inside of Fort Knox to irradiate all the gold, thereby making it worthless. That's the plan. But like, it's a great plan. Like the actual plan itself, all the intricate moving parts and everything to make it happen. Plus, his henchman is like the uber henchman, odd job.
I mean, that's a lot easier than stealing all the gold from Fort Knox.
Yeah. Well, like the guys that were helping him thought they planned on stealing it. Because they're like, Goldfinger, like, it would take like a week to get all the gold out of the vault. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not taking the gold out." Well, then what the hell are you doing? He's like, "We're going to detonate an atomic bomb in there." It's like, "You guys have helped me get all the parts in here. That Chinese gentleman you helped, they're the ones that gave me the bomb." So, yeah. That one's good. Plus, you know how a lot of there's women in the Bond movies that have names that have other potential meanings?
Yes.
Well, this one has just the one that's like stupidly blatant. The others are like Zendaya on a top. Dr. Holly Goodhead. Things like that. This one is Pussy Galore. And it's just one of those, like, even when her Bond first hears her name, he's like, because he'd been knocked out, he's on a plane. He's like, "Oh, now I know I must be dreaming." But the thing is, they changed it from the novel. She has that name for a reason in the novel. And in the movie, they kind of allude to it. She's a pilot. She has a squadron of pilots who are all women. Whenever Bond tries to win her over, she's like, "Oh, you'll find I'm quite immune to your charms, Mr. Bond." Turns out, she's not. And this is also one of those unfortunate moments where Bond is clearly quite forceful in pushing this issue. This is one where I think Family Guy mocked it, where it's like Connery is like, "No, James, no." And finally, he's just like, and she says yes. He's like, "Remember, it's like 87 no's and a yes. Still a yes. It's like, no, that's not how that works at all, Bond. But yeah. So yeah. So she's into women.
See, they are progressive.
Yeah, I guess. Except for the other part I just mentioned.
Well, you know, sometimes you have to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah. Uh yeah, some of the like there's her, there's Octopussy. I mean, you know, it's there. That one's bizarre though, because the woman that plays her is in another Bond movie as another Bond girl and gets killed. I think it's Maud Adams is her name, her real name. She's in The Man with the Golden Gun, played by Christopher Lee. Scaramanga, the man who charges $1 million a shot, kills people with golden bullets. He's after Bond just to prove that like he's the better like gunfighter. Like there's no higher like I'm not not working for anybody or anything like no I just want to prove I'm the better guy. So yeah, Christopher Lee plays him. He had an interesting physical feature that Bond had to exploit because he had to pretend to be him at one point in the movie, and he like writes it down and hands it to Q. And Q's like, "Come on, Bond." Scaramanga has a third nipple, and so he needed a fake one. That's why Q was like, "Come on, this is one of your pranks. I know it is." No, the two greatest things I ever saw from Q was one. Is in Goldfinger. Whenever he tells him about the ejector seat, and Bond's like, he chuckles and right in Q's face, like, "Surely you must be joking, Q." And Q like deadpan, like he could like pull out a knife and shank Bond at that moment. It's like, I never joke about my work, 007. You see Bond's like, as one of those looks like, okay, well, mental note, don't piss off Q anymore. Then the other is in, I want to say it's GoldenEye. I think it's GoldenEye. It's one of the Pierce Brosnan ones. Pierce Brosnan's always like playing with all the gadgets and everything there at Q Branch, and finally there's a sandwich sitting there, and he picks it up, and he's like, "What's this, Q?" And Q snatches it from him. "That's my lunch." He's expecting it to be like a bomb or something, because nothing there is what it appears. This is right after Q just got done showing him a pen that when you click it 3 times becomes a grenade and explodes, which comes in handy at the end of the movie because they give it to this guy. This guy's a total spaz. Grabs it and he's sitting there like twirling it and clicking it. And Bond's like having to keep track of how many times he's clicking it. Once he finally hits the right sequence, like knows he's got to get the hell out of there because it's about to explode. So yeah, but yeah, no, the Bond movies are great. You should definitely watch them. That's my sales pitch to you, Owen.
Oh, that was a massive sidetrack.
It was, and unless we got anything else on Lego, we might have to call it a day there.
Yeah.
Because
It's only that time.
yeah. So, uh, any closing thoughts on any of that?
Well, first I need to finish The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and then I'll get to the Bond movies.
Yeah, you should definitely watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Excellent Western. If you like that, there are 2 other movies in that loose series that may or may not be connected. They're all made by Sergio Leone and they all have Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
It's for a few dollars more and
a handful of dollars.
yeah, a fistful of dollars, yeah. Because people alternatively call them the Dollars Trilogy or the Man with No Name Trilogy. And even though The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was made last, it has to be the first one because of some events towards the end of the movie. So the other 2, I have no idea what sequence they go. And you'll see the same actors playing different characters. Like Lee Van Cleef is the bad guy in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and he teams up with Clint Eastwood in one of the other movies. So
maybe it's the trilogy. Maybe it's just 3 movies.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But if you like those, and you want to see like old grizzled Clint Eastwood as like the guy who's been through too much, seen too much, and tried to like walk away from all of it, but gets sucked back in, with Morgan Freeman by his side, check out Unforgiven. That one's great.
It's Western,
Yes.
old Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, it's older Clint Eastwood. Gene Hackman's the villain, as the sheriff. Like I said, Morgan Freeman's like his old sidekick from back in the day. These are two guys that like did all kinds of awful things earlier in their lives, and now are just trying to like live out the rest of their lives in peace, but get sucked back into all of it. And yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, I think we're just out of time.
Yeah, I think we are going to cut it off there. So, you folks like what you heard and you're somehow still with us, we always appreciate like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Commenting and sharing are the things that help us spread the channel the most, and I appreciate what you folks have been doing on that front because clearly we've been spreading because we've been getting new subscribers. And like I said, hopefully we'll hit our goals of 450 before the end of October and maybe 500 by the end of the year. I think we can do that, you know, but that's on us to make good content and on you folks to subscribe. So let's work together and make this happen. But that's mainly us. I know that. So yeah, I think that's all we got to say. So I think this will close this meeting of the Geek Cabal, and see you folks next time.
See ya.